This is the Sharing Without Shame podcast, where we go beyond addiction to uncover the deeper roots of trauma and shame. Hurt people. They hide behind masks. And here, we're done hiding. We're sharing our stories without shame.
Hello, and welcome to the Sharing Without Shame podcast. I'm your host, Donna Marston. I'm an author, certified recovery support worker, family recovery facilitator, and most importantly, a mom who's walked the painful path of loving a child in active addiction. This podcast is a safe space for parents and family members navigating the chaos, the confusion, the heartache, and the heartbreak that addiction often brings into the home. Here you'll find real talk, no sugar-coated advice, plus practical tools and proven strategies that will help you set boundaries, shift your mindset, and start showing up for your own life again. You're not alone. You don't have to keep living in survival mode. And when you're ready, you can take the next step and grab my free guide, 5 Boundaries and Breakthroughs, in the show notes. And when the time feels right, reach out. I'd be honored to walk this journey with you. So today, I would like to introduce you to Dr. Tom Horvath, a board-certified clinical psychologist and a pioneer in addiction recovery. Dr. Horvath served as a Navy psychologist, founded Practical Recovery, and was a co-founder and longtime president of Smart Recovery, an international science-based addiction support network. He has held leadership roles in the American Psychological Association and is recognized expert on addiction behaviors. He is the author of Sex, Drugs, Gambling, and Chocolate, a workbook for overcoming addiction. Welcome, Tom.
Thank you. I'm very happy to be here.
Well, thanks for coming. So, first question I like to ask is, what would you like to share without shame?
I have moments of shame that tend to be brief, might only be a few seconds, but I would say multiple times per day. I assume this is normal, but I don't really know. I could be driving around town and see something that reminds me of something I did that I regret doing. Just have a memory flash into my head. I sometimes think that if I had to list all the mistakes I've ever made, it would take the rest of my life to complete the list. So I'm glad I don't have to do it. But of course, it's how we learn. So on the other hand, I could say I've learned a lot, but these moments do come up, and I would wish, as a psychologist, I would wish for anybody not to be burdened by shame, although maybe a little bit is good. I'm still thinking about that, but it's definitely a part of my life and one I don't get a chance to talk about much. So thank you.
No, you're welcome. Well, I think too, sometimes shame is, we're ashamed of a behavior or I know when my son was in active addiction, I felt ashamed. And I think sometimes shame can be good, that helps you move to a better behavior. It identifies. And sometimes it's unnecessary, because I have a son who used to, be in active addiction, and why was I so ashamed of that?
Mm.
My son has a brain disorder. His brain's wired differently than mine,
Mm-hmm.
but I didn't know it at the time.
Yeah.
Can you address any of that?
On that one point, I don't think shame is entirely bad. Shame and guilt do motivate us to behave better, and that's good. So it's a dosage thing, as with many things. Too much is too much, not enough is not enough. A little bit of shame and guilt can be helpful. The view of addiction as a brain disorder is a very popular view right now, but for listeners, I want them to realize that you get to make your own decision about that. If you believe that you have a brain disorder and that belief is helpful to you, then by all means, go with that. If you think, I don't have a brain disorder, I mean, I got a problem, but not a brain disorder, that's fine too. You get to make your own decisions about these issues and to do what works best for you, which is part of the self-empowering approach to
Yeah.
addressing addictive problems, which is what I have specialized in my career.
Yeah, I like that. I like that. You get to choose.
Mhm.
That's very good. So you're the co-founder of Smart Recovery. How long
Yes.
ago did that happen? How did that happen? Tell us about that.
Well, SMART was finally established in 1994, but like many organizations, it has a prehistory, which goes back into the late 80s in an organization called Rational Recovery. And then a nonprofit was spun off called the Rational Recovery Self-Help Network, and that network ended up changing its name to Smart Recovery. So I don't talk so much about what happened prior to 1994, but the people who came together to found it all believed that it was important that we have an alternative to AA. And I think our current position is to be fully appreciative of the value that 12-step groups of AA, NA, all of them, there's several dozen of them, bring to the world, and to recognize that when people have a choice, like I could go to this very different approach called Smart Recovery, or I could go to AA, I get to choose, that they'll feel more committed to what they're doing than if they think, well, this is it, 12-step or nothing. So we think that even though SMART is much smaller, vastly smaller than the
Yeah.
12-step community, the fact that we exist is very important so that people hopefully have heard of us and recognize that if they're going to 12-step, it's because they chose to, and it's the approach that makes the most sense to them, or
Hmm.
whatever the reason. I mean, AA is, I'll usually just say AA. It's very available. It's very well supported. The differences in the approaches, there's probably a dozen that I could spin out, but one of the big ones is that in the self-empowering approach, as opposed to the powerlessness approach, you do have a lot of decisions to make. And some people welcome that. Like, I want to be in charge here. Nobody's going to tell me what to do. On the other hand, many people are very happy to just sit down, shut up, and be told what to do and do it. And I think probably in different parts of our lives, we operate on both sides of that continuum. Sometimes I just show up someplace and you tell me what to do. I'll do it. I'm happy.
Hmm.
And other times I definitely want to be in charge. So one of your initial decisions then is, what kind of approach do you want? In a SMART meeting, the meetings are more conversational. That's probably the most noticeable difference on the surface. Belief in a higher power is not necessary. We focus a lot on tools and skills. Of course, 12-step does this too, but we're more deliberate about it. And we have a lot of training materials, publications. We have entire meetings devoted to learning a psychological skill or tool, which many people find helpful. So that and one additional piece is that there's now there's two big pieces of scientific evidence, I would say. One is that 12-step group, specifically AA, has been shown to be as effective as professional treatment for dealing with alcohol problems. Now, that's impressive. Uh,
Mm.
you don't have to pay anything. You can show up wherever you want, whenever you want. That is impressive. And the four studies that we have so far all suggest that SMART, and in a few of these studies, some other groups too, like LifeRing and Women for Sobriety, are as effective as AA. So it's this equivalence.
Yeah.
Treatment, AA, SMART recovery, all effective. That means you've got even more choices. We give people too many choices and they get overwhelmed, but that's not too bad. Treatment,
Yeah.
12-step, smart recovery, or some of the other alternative. We're now calling them second wave mutual help groups. So you've got a lot of choices that could be helpful.
Many pathways, that people use, which I think is really important because not one way isn't always the right way for certain people. It's just like, when I used to provide in-person meetings, family support meetings, and people would say, "How did you do it? How did you get your son sober?" First of all, I never did. He did it. I had nothing to do with it. I just loved him through it.
Yeah.
Secondly, and I'd always say, we have to find our own way, because what worked for me may not work for you. There's no right or way, and there's no wrong way. We just have to find our way.
Yes.
As
Yes.
in many things in life, not just addiction, but many things.
For as much guidance as there is out there, we still have to stumble along ourselves, making decisions we will later think of as shameful, but eventually learning what we need to do. And yes, life is this ongoing trial and error process. Your son is very lucky to have had a mother who was so persistent and so caring. So good for him.
I'm not sure that he would have thought it back then, but I do believe he's grateful now. He's
Yeah.
17 years in recovery, and
Yeah.
living a great life. And I
That's
think that's so important for people to understand, especially when we're in it, when we're in the throes of it, because we feel so helpless and hopeless. And I know I did. There was times I was ready to give up. And I would say and do things sometimes, because I was so desperate to save and rescue him, that I made a mess, and it was
mm,
hurtful. And,
mm.
and I don't know if you can speak to any of that, like how you would talk to family members to navigate through their loved one's addiction. Is there any helpful hints that you would provide?
Well, in Smart Recovery, we have what we call family and friend groups, and these are the equivalent of Al-Anon. We base them largely around an approach called CRAFT, which should be more well known. CRAFT, CRAFT, Community Reinforcement and Family Training, and it was been around for decades. It's very well studied scientifically. There are a couple of popular books about it. One is called Get Your Loved One Sober. First author is Robert Myers. And then Beyond Addiction, the first author
Mhm.
is Jeff Foote, Foote. And these books emphasize that the loved one's problems are the loved one's problems, not yours, but you can choose to help be part of the solution. You can
Right.
let your hands, just wash your hands of the whole thing. That is an option you have. I don't think too many mothers do that, but we at times we do that with people in our lives. It's like I'm just going to not deal with this anymore. But if you want to be part of the solution, there's some fascinating techniques in there. One of them is called taking partial responsibility, where you come forward and you say, I can see how my behavior contributed to the
Yep.
situation, and I'm going to change that.
Yep.
And staying focused on the positive parts of the person's life and reinforcing them, avoiding nagging, whining, pleading, which is so easy to do. It's a kind of addictive behavior itself, because in the
Yeah.
moment that we do it, it is a release and all this energy
Sure.
is built up. But to get beyond that can be very helpful. Supporting alternative kinds of activities. The craft approach focuses on getting people into treatment, but the industry, addiction treatment industry, does not publicize the fact, but it is a fact that in very round numbers, half of the people who resolve addictive problems, maybe a higher percentage, do so on their own. They don't go to treatment. They don't even go to mutual help groups. And of those who do get some outside help, probably most of them go to mutual help groups, which, in light of what we said before, we know they're effective. That's a good idea. So the idea that you should get treatment or get help isn't your most important priority if you're trying to support one to change. It's helping a person realize, and the language is important. I wouldn't say, I want you to know you have a problem, because people will push back on that more. If you say, look, you've had some problems, let's take drinking. You've had some problems from drinking. That's kind of hard to fight back on, because you can say, you had a DUI, you got fired, I'm making this all up, but you're got bad liver enzymes. I mean, you ignored your kids for the last 3 weeks, etc. These are facts that they typically can't hide from. So these are problems that I'd like to help you address. I want you to recognize that these problems exist and that you're the one who needs to take charge of finding a solution. And there's all kinds of
Mhm.
help if you want it, but
Yep.
can't solve a problem you don't pay attention to. So why don't we start by paying attention to this and figuring out what could be done? And I'm here to help, but ultimately you're the one who's going to solve this problem.
Yeah, and I use the craft approach. So I've done some trainings and I really love it. And one of the things, I had a mom a few years ago, I bumped into her. I asked her how she was doing, and she was like, "Oh, things not good." Her son had a reoccurrence, and he's like 21. He was still living at home, and dad wanted him out, and she's like, "No way, I don't want him to go." And I get it. So we got talking, and I said, "Well, we just opened up a local recovery community center in
Hmm.
Concord. What does he love to do?" And she goes, "Well, he's always wanted to learn how to play the guitar." And I said, "Well, how about if you negotiate? If you want to learn how to play the guitar, I don't mind paying for your lessons if you would consider going to the recovery center once a week and talking to a recovery coach." And he did it. And he found out he was artistic in many different ways, and
Hmm.
he loved it, and he that's how he found his recovery. And because she supported him
Yes.
and participated in a solution,
Yes.
because truth be told, we're part of the problem, and we can
Mm.
be part of the solution when we
Yes.
know better,
Yes. Yes.
right? Until we don't know, until we know, and it takes us some time. But
Yes.
it works beautifully when we are able to work with the person who might be sick and suffering and offer some options of
Yeah.
solutions. And one of the other things that we talk about with the people I work with is that I'll support you in your recovery, but I can no longer participate in your active addiction. So
Yes.
what does this look like?
Ah,
And we can come up with an agreement. So we do family agreements. How do we
yes.
live together? And it works 9 times out of 10, it works really good.
Yeah. Yeah. It gets these issues into the family discussion and actions get taken. And
Hmm.
even if they aren't the right ones at first, eventually they point the way to better ones. And this story about the young man and the guitar and the arts, I like because it can be the case that somebody leaves a substance behind and they may quite accurately say, I don't think there's anything in the world that's going to make me feel quite like that substance did. It was really special and I valued it. But they discover that there's other things they value even more, so they go from thinking something like, I need this to survive or I need this to live to a place where they can say, I live better without it. And living better without it means they've got stuff going on. They've got people, they've got activities, goals, a vision for themselves, things they produce that are deeply meaningful to them and they do not want to lose.
Hmm.
So yeah, that's a way to talk about what recovery consists of.
Yeah. And I think meeting other people who
Mhm.
get what you've been through, who get what that craving feels like, is
Mhm.
really important, because I don't have an SUD. I don't know those feelings. I know the desperation of trying to save my son, what that
Mhm.
felt like,
Right.
but I would imagine it's quite different.
Yeah. Yeah.
So so
Well, one overtone of that, Donna, from my perspective, I think we all have a degree of craving for different kinds of things. Could be food, could be getting attention from other people, could be sex. I think those are normal, just food, sex, getting attention. Those are normal parts of life. So we all get that tension and agitation, and we want to act on it. But if you haven't had an SUD, you might not appreciate the intensity of that craving when you're pursuing a substance that you've been using a lot of.
Well, it's like giving up your best friend and your lover, is my
Yeah.
understanding, right? And
Yeah.
one of the other things, and I thought this was such a great explanation. Years ago, I went around the state of New Hampshire, and we would teach all the clergy about addiction,
Hmm.
that it's not shameful, it's not sinful, and blah blah blah. The way what I learned, that a craving, when somebody needs to get high, or just the feeling of that needle or whatever it is, it's like somebody is dunking them underwater and holding their head underwater, and they're gasping for air and they're frantic and they're trying to get your head up. hand off their head and they're trying to get up so they can breathe. And it's just like,
Yeah.
that's like the craving that they're going through. They can't control it. Everything's out of control.
And they will exhibit tremendous effort and creativity uh,
Yeah,
in order to get to their next dosage and be able to experience it. Yeah, it's
yeah,
astonishing sometimes.
yes, it is. It's
I,
amazing. I said, it's crazy. Is there anything that you can tell people that what you see as maybe myths or versus the realities of loving someone in active addiction or when somebody is trying to get into recovery?
some people have the idea that they need to cut off contact. And if you're going to do that for yourself, that is your decision. So I couldn't argue with that. But if you're doing that because you think it's going to help the person, I would say it's definitely not going to help the person. Even though you might not even be willing to see them, that can happen. It's just being around you is too agitating or it's too risky. But most people have phones and you can text them and you can call them and you can stay in touch and you can make it clear that I am a part of your life and I want you to be a part of my life.
Hmm.
And I will talk with you. Maybe I'll talk with you about your addictive problems. I'll talk with you about other things too. Even people with major addictive problems have other interests and other concerns. And so one, I would definitely keep communication open. It's probably in families that may be the biggest one that I see. We've already emphasized the idea that there are many pathways to do this. So family members should not be insisting on any particular approach or pathway, but encouraging someone to stay focused on it. As I said before, you can't solve a problem that you don't pay attention to. So is the person paying attention?
And that you don't understand either.
True.
So sometimes the family members have no understanding of addiction, which I didn't. And so I did stuff I shouldn't have done, all in the name of love,
Right,
thinking
right.
it was right, and it was not good
Mhm.
looking back.
Part of
And
that learning process. Probably one other piece that people, I don't know if it's a myth, but they may overlook it, but people do, even with severe addictive problems, do have other aspects of their lives. And that's eventually what will become their life again. Maybe there's a relationship that's important to them, an activity, they may love some music. You can help keep those parts of their lives alive and support those activities and connections. So that's a positive thing a family member can do also.
yeah, because so here's what I used to do wrong. When I would go visit him in rehab, I wanted to talk about what the next steps were, what he was going to do, and let's talk about everything he did wrong so we can fix it.
Yeah.
And that was not good. So he didn't want. Guess what? He doesn't want to see me. And now that I know better, I don't blame him because who wants
Yeah.
to be reminded of what you did wrong? And kind of bouncing around, but I was doing this class one day and it was all these people in recovery and me. And no one would talk to me because I'm the mother. It's amazing how we're received. And finally this guy says, "You know what we don't like about you?" And I'm like, "I don't even know you people." And he goes, "Because you mothers remind us of everything we've done wrong."
Mm,
And I was like, "Ugh."
mm,
But you know what? He's right. He was absolutely right because every time my son would come home from treatment, I would remind him that he owes thousands of dollars and he needed to get a job, he needed to do this, it was blah 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 blah. And I kept doing it and pounding it and instilling it. And guess what? He'd go right back out there again.
Well, you were persistent. I'll give you
Certainly was.
that.
But you know what happened? So his last treatment, and my son got found his recovery on Mother's Day in 2008.
Oh, that's a compliment.
Yeah, well, it could have gone sideways had he had his attempt work, but it didn't. The night before he's supposed to come home for treatment, this woman friend calls, and she goes, "I hear he's coming home," and I said, "Yeah," and she goes, "Are you excited?" And I said, "Yeah, but he has to do blah 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 blah." Now she's a person in long-term recovery, and she goes, "Donna, why don't you do something different this time. And I said, what's that? She goes, why don't you zip your lip and mind your own business and work your own recovery program? What? I thought, how dare you? I'm the mother. Don't you understand? But something happened that night when I went to sleep. I don't know what it was, but I woke up and I zipped it and I minded my own business. And what I learned was every time he'd walk out the door, by saying, hey, make good decisions today and trying to tell him what to do, I was
Mm,
trying to manipulate him. I was
mm.
working on manipulating his recovery. So I had to learn to say, hey, have a great day. I love you.
Yeah, that's so important.
And then go in the other room and hold my breath.
Well, we raise our children so that we can protect them from the evils of the world and support them. And then when they do self-destructive things, it's really difficult.
Mm-hmm.
But I want to come back to, let's suppose one is visiting their child in rehab. So how do you handle that? And my suggestion is to keep the conversation simple and to keep it positive. So,
Yeah.
for instance, it's so good to see you. I haven't seen you in a week or 2 weeks, and you look pretty good. How's the food here? I'm curious, what's it like to be here? Beds, roommates, do you have enough free time? Do you get to go outside? Do you get to do the things you want? Are you making any friends? I would wait for answers too, but these kinds of questions that, like, this is just a visit. I want to find out how you are. I'm proud that you're staying here because they don't have to stay. They can walk out anytime they want.
Yeah.
If you want to get a little more serious, like what are you learning? Has there been anything, has any interesting ideas occurred to you? Have you learned anything that you think will be helpful for you? Most of these places have stuff they want to teach you, but they do, I don't know, it's like going, into a fifth grade classroom. Everybody's going to learn reading, writing, and arithmetic, but what your child needs might not be, they might need the art class. It's hard to say. So they throw
Right.
everything at everybody and wait to see what sticks. So that kind of more casual conversation that conveys, I care about you, I'm interested in how your life is going, I'm proud of you, it's good to see you. That's an easier conversation to have, and they'll
Mhm.
look forward to your next visit.
Right. And stay in the moment. Don't talk about what are you going to do when you get out of here?
Yeah,
Because they don't know.
yeah, yeah, they don't.
And it's too much.
The, one of the characteristics of a severe substance use disorder is your thinking becomes very short term. You're rarely focused on longer than today, and sometimes you're only focused on the next hour. I did see a motivational poster the other day. I don't know why this had never occurred to me. Imagine the cocaine user who wakes up and says, gee, I don't have any money. I guess I won't be able to use cocaine today. Nothing doing. Like, I'm going to make it happen. I don't care if I don't have any money. So
Mhm.
the point of the poster was you got to be like a cocaine user. You got to decide that this is going to happen, even if you can't quite figure out how to do it. So they put all that energy into making it happen this hour, this day, and we'll worry about tomorrow. So to
Mhm.
ask them what they're going to do when they get out of rehab in 2 weeks, I mean, yeah, it's just beyond any time frame that they think in. So
Yeah.
you become the bringer of bad questions, which you do not want to be.
Mm-mm. And also, I thought, talking about like fun times. Remember when we went to Disney or we went camping and it rained and we turned green from the tent, rubbing off
Yeah,
on
yeah, yeah,
or bring an old family photo book or scrapbook that they may have had and
yeah,
talk about those times and remind them how fun life was.
yeah. That's nice. I like that.
Yeah. Yeah. So I want to shift over to a different direction. Let's talk about your book.
Okay.
Sex, Drugs, Gambling, and Chocolate takes a different approach to addiction recovery. What's that all about?
Well, the title intends to convey that addictive behavior is actually normal. As I mentioned before, food, sex, getting attention from other people, call it bonding. And we all want things, we desire them, we feel satisfaction when we get them. So any of those things can become extreme. And in modern life, then we have all these substances and activities, we have gambling and video games and pornography and shopping, and it's almost endless. In the book, I try to talk about what would motivate us to change, which is generally that problems have exceeded benefits. If benefits are exceeding problems, you're a moderate drinker, you're a moderate lotto player, you're a moderate video game player, and people enjoy those things, so that's fine. If you decide to change, you're going to need to focus on craving because it will probably come up. So there's several chapters devoted to what are cravings, how do you recognize them, how do you deal with them, and then you need to build a new life, because your addictive behavior has in some cases become most of your life, and now you're going to have this big vacuum that needs to be filled up. So this is a process that takes place over time, and the book tries to, in a pretty straightforward way, lay out what's essentially a cognitive behavioral approach to dealing with these problems. There are other approaches. There's lots of books. It's probably hundreds of books now on dealing with addictive behavior. But if somebody wants a workbook that's going to show you step by step, these are the kinds of things you can do, it is an option. And I know that some people have found it very helpful. So that's very pleasing.
Nice. So how do people find your book? Where would they
It's just on Amazon. It's on Amazon, and it's in a Kindle version now. So,
Oh,
but you
nice.
don't have to have a Kindle. This has been one of Amazon's developments. You can just get the Kindle app for free on your phone or your computer, and then you can read any of their Kindle publications.
Oh, good to know. And how do people get in touch with you?
Our practice website is practicalrecovery.com, and I chose practical recovery because I want to emphasize that we're trying to figure out what works for you, what works in your life, what's feasible, what's realistic, what makes sense to you. So yes, practicalrecovery.com. And if you want to check out SMART, then go to smartrecovery.org, which is the US site. And that will also link you to sites around the world, because SMART's now, well, in 30, 40 countries. So it's getting to be worldwide. And
Yeah, I
in
know
maybe
it's pretty
18
popular in New
languages.
Hampshire.
Yeah, yeah. Well, Massachusetts was one of the early strongholds of SMART and still is.
Yeah. So practical recovery, that's your business, that's
Yes.
your company, and that's not like treatment.
You
Is
do,
it?
well, at one time we actually ran rehabs and sober livings also. We have retrenched. As I've gotten older, it's been easier to just run a smaller operation. So we are now outpatient only. Um, we do have clients who come from around the country, in some cases around the world, who just stay in a hotel and work with us intensively for a few weeks instead of going to rehab. But most of our clients are local.
Where are you located?
We're in San Diego.
Oh, okay.
It's a great place to visit.
Yeah, I was there years ago,
Yeah.
many years ago.
Yeah.
Any words of wisdom before we leave that you'd like to tell the audience or share with the
Well,
audience?
Don, I want to thank you because this effort of yours helps enlighten a lot of people. They can listen to your podcast and think about it. And every so often I come across somebody who says, I heard this podcast by so and so, and I just kept listening to it and listening to it. And I got it. And then they could move forward. And I'm sure that's true for some
Mm,
of your podcasts,
yeah,
that's made a difference. And words of wisdom, otherwise, like most other issues in life, persistence pays off. You need to stay on this. More important, if you've got a problem you're addressing, more important than getting help even is that you make a decision that you're going to be persistent. I'm going to stay on this. And if you're doing that, probably some kind of record keeping is useful. If you want to lose weight, you've probably got a bathroom scale and you might be writing down the number every day or every week. It's a way to be accountable. So what are you going to track? There's all kinds of things you could track, but tracking something could be useful. And you're going to find your way either to solve your own problem or to help a family member. And making notes to yourself as you go about what you're learning could also be very useful.
Nice. Well, thank you. Well, thank you for taking the time to share your wisdom today. I really appreciate it.
I'm delighted to be here, Donna. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining Donna for today's conversation. Remember, trauma may wear many faces, but healing is about uncovering the truth beneath the pain and learning to live without shame. If today's episode resonated with you, please subscribe, share, and leave a review. It helps this message reach more hearts that need it. If you have a story of navigating trauma, shame, or addiction and how you found your freedom, Donna would love to hear from you. This podcast is built on real stories, and yours could inspire someone else's healing. Visit sharingwithoutshame.com to connect with Donna, apply to be a guest, or learn how to bring her books, coaching, and speaking engagements to your community or organization. Until next time, remember, healing begins the moment you choose to stop hiding and start sharing without shame.